Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of Banter Blitz with Jan Gustafsson. That's me. You know the drill, I believe. Challenge me to a game of 3 minutes or 5 minutes if you are a premium member, and we'll play and I'll crush you, as it says on the screensaver. I'm feeling, I don't know. I was gonna say very sharp, but that would be a lie. It's Friday evening. I'm exhausted. I'm trying to make it to the weekend without mind-crushing defeats. Let's see if anybody can hear me, see me, follow me. For that I'm gonna have to start my own show and check out the chat. If anybody's here, please let me know. Make it to the weekend without mind-crushing defeats. Let's see if anybody can hear me, see me, follow me. For that I'm going to have to start my own show and check out the chat. If anybody's here. Sounds like work. Senekafi says hi, and so does Gustavus. So we'll get right to it and we'll start playing a strong opponent, which, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Mr. Karo Khan. But I'm black, so he can't employ his favorite Karo Khan, and he plays d4, my kryptonite. It's a bit of a problem as a chess player of 1 d4. The move everybody plays is your kryptonite. But what are you gonna do? And I'll play as solid as I can. Play e6 and... no, let's play c6. I've been playing a bit of knight f6 here recently, this classical conservative Queen's Gambit declined. But I've always had a soft spot for this triangle, which can transpose into the semi-Slav or into the exciting Marshall Gambit if he goes e4, which he does. Normally if you're black you kind of bluff this, because white players would never go e4 and sacrifice a pawn unless they're very well prepared for it. I did a lot of work here in the old days. I won a nice game against Luke Van Velde, for example. But he goes knight to c3 and chickens out, doesn't allow knight f3, and he writes, I am chicken. Knight c3 is not a bad move. Magnus Carlsen played it to beat Vishy Anand in one of their World Championship matches, I believe the one from 2013, but it leads to much quieter play. It also leads to me being out of book. I believe I have some analysis here with bishop takes c3. I believe Vishy played bishop a5. Wish I could remember. I'll take, it's more direct, and go queen a5. Attacking the pawn, and after bishop d2, my idea is to go knight e4 and exchange the bishop. As we all know, I love my 2 bishops, so I'm trying to get it back ASAP. I brought the exciting Chess 24 mug. It's a lefties mug though, so I have to hold it very awkwardly so you guys can see our beautiful mug. I didn't know they produced lefty mugs. So yeah, I think this is all theory. Now the very, very dull way to play would be c takes d4 and try to get into an ending, which is probably about equal. But I'll be a bit more brave and I'll castle, which I'm not sure how good it is since it allows some attacks with knight g5 and so on. But cd4 did look a bit boring even for my standards. He castles as well. Now the situation has changed a bit. His king is away from the center, and after cd, queen d2, knight d2, I might win a tempo or two for developing, attacking this d4 pawn. Not saying I'm better, but now this looks like a much more sensible decision than a move earlier. Rook d8. The problem is he can still cover everything with knight c6, rook d1, and I can only dream about being better. I can't go knight d4 because there's bishop h7 in the end. And he does that, so all I can do is try to get my pieces out. b6, bishop b7 or bishop a6, rook c8. If white doesn't do anything active, I might get some play against those hanging pawns, but he has moves like d5. So I don't think I could really be better here, and probably have to even handle with some care. We'll see. He goes bishop e4, pinning, makes my move kind of easy, bishop b7. Now if knight e5, rook ac8 once again, I'd be happy. Not sure if d5 is an option here, but then I can maybe go knight a5 and try to exploit that his bishop can't take on b7. I've been watching the Banter Blitzes from our Spanish contributor Jose Cuenca yesterday, And I feel bad because he's so excited and he gets all riled up about every move. It's like a Spanish football commentator. While me, I'm just sitting here, yeah, boring ending. So I don't know, I'm gonna have to step up the intensity, but I'm not sure I have it in me. So we have a boring ending which is about equal. I arguably slightly better because his hanging pawns could turn out to be a little weak. I could go rook d6 immediately, but then I think he can get active with a move like c5. So I prefer to wait one move, play king f8. Now I might be threatening rook d6 or rook dc8. Not that easy for white to play, but if he goes rook d2, yeah, one move like that, looks like he's still in time to cover everything. So how do we do this? Could try to blow things up with b5, c5, then not e5 immediately because he has d5, but something like rook d5. He goes f4 and it's all a bit drawish really. Oh, and I'm low on time, so I shouldn't think about all these subtleties, but just make random moves. I shouldn't pre-move rook d5, that was a bit risky, but we'll see how it goes. e5, it's all still very close to a draw. But I'm the one with the better chances and the better time after I realized there wasn't that much left. So I can look into the future with a little bit of optimism. And this rook ending, now I'm a pawn up, this should offer me some very decent chances. Of course the main plan is flagging whom am I trying to kid, but I believe it's also not so easy objectively. Just making some random moves. It will come down to, okay, didn't have time to take on b5, but would have come down to one of these classical 4 against 3, where black has good winning chances. Rook goes to a3, and rook goes to c3, pawn to a3. Some friendly chatter after the game, and let's go find our next opponent. Challenges. Who we got? Mr. Matutev. Here we are. Where's this guy from? Argentina. Haven't played a lot of Argentinians on the show. Glad to see we got premium members over there as well. Matutev rated 23-24, which is a very good rating. So he's a strong player and I have to be careful. He plays the Slav. I never really know what to do against it. I switch around between the main line, the exchange Slav, and this knight c3, e3, which I'm playing here. a6, on the other hand, I know stuff, because I've prepared for it recently in a game in the Thailand Open. Check out my very insightful show about the Thai opening clinic, if you want to know details about that one. But I've done some work on this line, b5, b3, bishop g4, bishop e2. So I'm mildly confident as long as I can remember what I prepared for that game. Black has a choice here between e6 and knight bd7. e6 was my game, then h3, g4, knight e5. I'm trying to figure out what I wanted after knight bd7. I think it was also h3, g4, knight e5. But I think it was. We'll see how it goes. He goes e6. I thought back then, and I still think, that knight bd7 is a more critical test because here white gets in knight e5 unchallenged. Now I have the threat of h4, h5. So there's a theoretical position, knight fd7, bishop b4, bishop e7. There are some moves here, but I thought it was easier to play with white. Bishop b4, bishop d2. We have some very sharp lines, which I'm trying to remember. Some games by Luke McShane. Knight fd7. What do I do? Most obvious is to just take on g6 and continue developing. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Knight d3 might have been an alternative. But the point is, white only takes on g6 after black played knight fd7, which arguably is not the smoothest way to develop, so black has to lose some time, maybe go g5 and knight f6 back to get his pieces in order, and I'll try to use that time to make something happen somewhere on the queen side, maybe go a4, open the position up a bit. Not having said all that, black is still perfectly solid, of course, so you can't claim a whole lot here. Still, I thought it was a pleasant line for white to play. Queen e7, what do I want to do? a4 looks like the most natural move. Yeah, why not? You can take twice on c4. Well, it feels like white should be a bit better, but it's not that clear actually. Takes, takes, bishop takes, and some knight b6, c5, or c5 immediately. Not that easy, but I do like my bishops, so I have something to look forward to. And he plays another sensible move, he just castles. Now I have to decide if I want to commit on the queen side, playing c5 or even a5 would be an ambitious move, or if I want to castle as well, which would be maybe a more sane choice. But I like a5. Let's try it. The point is just so he can go a5 and get a stronghold on b4 followed by knight a6. And I'm trying to make it a bit tougher for him to develop. The problem is now black can and maybe should open the position with dc, bishop c4, then either e5 or c5. When it gets a bit messy, goes knight f6, feels time to bring my own king into safety as well. It's always a tricky decision here if you go castles or king f1 and king g2. But since there's nothing happening on the h-file, I believe castles, and then king g2 if needed is fine. What's going on? Yeah. Feel I'm slightly better because I have the two bishops, but the game is just beginning. Could be thinking about c5 or the natural move. Knight bd7. I'll put a rook here. See what happens. Maybe there's some threats with knight takes d5 or rook takes b4 at some point. Rook fb1 is also a useful move because it frees this e1 square for the bishop, which I could use now, but now he's kind of baiting me into going bishop b4. What's happening then? Bishop b4, queen h4, bishop f1, and okay, I haven't achieved all that much, but let's still do it. You could also go c5, but then dc5 doesn't look like that's the flank where he wants to open the game. So I'm expecting queen h4 when I will probably admit my bluff and just play bishop f1. Queen f6, I have bishop d3. Yeah, he goes here. I'll calmly retreat. And now maybe I'm actually gonna put this other bishop on e1 as well. Just to threaten some f3 maybe and create some threats on rook b8, cd5, attacking these potential targets on the queen side. He retreats all the way home. Now I'm gonna take, trying to gain control over the b-file because I thought if rook takes I can win a pawn, and I like pawns. Here we go. Yeah, now black is in trouble long term, so he better get some desperate attack going with, I don't know, f5, queen g5, something along those lines. It's a bit hard to believe. He plays more quietly, but that doesn't ask me that many questions, so I can also play quietly, just go bishop f1, push this a-pawn forward, and I should have a winning position here. Still needs to be handled with care, some holes around my king, but should be good. Queen d6, no threats, so let's just move forward. Do I want to go a7 or is that losing the pawn? No, I can always defend it, so why not push the passed pawn as far as possible? Planning queen a4, I have to check for a second if then he is not in time to win my pawn with his many knights, but I don't think he is. Queen goes to c7. Now we need to find a way to push the pawn past the finish line. Inventive as I am, I'll first offer a queen exchange, which he can't accept, just trying to get my queen a little closer to the action. Now if he goes back to c7, now can I do this, or is queen c2 a problem? Exciting technique, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, bishop a5 looks a bit clumsy. Not gonna do that. Instead, I'll keep maneuvering around. Maybe push these knights away. f3, is that a good move? Not sure. f3 feels a bit odd. It's slightly weakening my king after knight g5, so I don't really want to play it, but I'm kind of struggling to find a good plan to finish this game. So I'll do the practical thing, just make moves and hope that the fruit will ripen in its own accord. I'm not sure what that means, but I read it somewhere in a similar position, so I'm sure it's insightful advice. Knight d7. It's hard to break through still. Let's try this. And now I'm intending to go queen c6 or knight b6. You can go here, but I was going to say I have bishop a5, but I don't because of rook a7. Not very convincing technique at all, ladies and gentlemen. The good thing is my position allows me quite some liberties. I have to speed up a bit, and I really have struggled to finish this one off. f3, terrible move. Now the knight comes to d6. I'm bungling it, as Lawrence Trent would say. Big time. e3 is on prise. Yeah, this has not gone well. Knight e8 gives me a break. He's very short on time, which does help a bit, but he had knight c8, for example, when things were far from easy. Not that things are easy now after I just gave this pawn away, but with my bishop active again, there's some hope. And yeah, he cracks under the time pressure. Good game by me until I had this winning position with the a-pawn. Then I couldn't find a way to queen it, and I played pretty terribly for the rest of it. But what are you going to do? Point is a point, as they say. Let's find the next opponent. On my long list of challenges, Wex. Can't recall having played Wex from France. Here we go, Mr. Wex. I'm in a bit of a hurry because I want to go to the movies and watch Mad Max. I'm very excited about Mad Max. It got very good reviews, and I like Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron, so I think it's a good movie. I'm running a bit out of stuff to watch. I'm watching my Game of Thrones, but there's only one episode a week, and the last 2 episodes have been weak. So yeah, NBA playoffs, I have to wait a week for the finals. I gotta go all the way to the movies. Goes e4, Mr. Wex, and I will play the Sicilian. He's rated 1900, and he goes for the aggressive d4, intending after c takes d to sacrifice a pawn, the Mora Gambit. I played this at the beginning of my chess career when I was like 13, 14, with mixed results, and I quickly got away from 1e4 in general. However, the Mora Gambit is not as bad as one might think it is, if one thinks it's bad. I would thought this setup was very good, 97. I think you're supposed to start with queen c7 actually, but there are some tricks here as well. Can't claim I'm much of an expert. I like this idea with knight e7, knight g6, then get the pieces out, but there were some dangerous ideas in some of these lines with knight coming to d5. He goes bishop d5 even. And I wasn't that sure, it looked quite tricky. Bishop d5, I'm not even going to think about taking it, but bishop b7 looks okay because his bishop doesn't contribute that much offensively, and I just want to go bishop e7 and castles, and one day he's going to have to remove it or take on c6, where I just take back with the bishop. He goes bishop g5, trying to provoke me to go f6. I think I can just go bishop e7 after f6. I might have some troubles with bishop takes e6, so why bother? If he takes here, I'll recapture with the queen. The good thing is I'm a pawn up. That's the problem with all these gambits. If you don't checkmate, or if you don't gain an initiative, let's say, after the opening, you do have close to a losing position because of the pawn you sacrificed earlier. So I'm less anti-gambits than you might think. I do like the marshal and so on, but I do like pawns as well. What happens? Yeah, now it looks like I'm basically just a pawn up. I'm making an effort to get rid of the crutch words like basically, actually, in a nutshell, having said so, in my opinion. But they're still there. It's very hard to get rid of them. The one I've never used is like. And he was like, oh my god. And she was like, no. But I might include that one. Rook c2. I'm gonna push his knight away from c3. Yeah, I like my position. How do we make progress though? I'm thinking about rook ac8, but he could take on a6, which I don't like. So I'll go to b5, take the queen. He's gonna play queen e3, and I'll play some rook to c8. Oh, queen d2, fair enough. He did gain control of the c-file, which is some compensation, but this knight on b1 is not a very happy camper, so they would have to get out. And I will try to activate my own knight, now that he allowed me to with queen takes c2. I'll go knight f4 and threaten a little check on e2. Or on some lines, you know, bishop d3, knight d3. Some options. Knight d4, another good move. Could threaten checkmate, which is always tempting. Thinking about bishop d3, queen d2, queen g5, and g3, knight h3 check, king g2. Yeah, let's do that. Deep calculations once again, but it did look like it could work. G3, knight h3, it's defending the queen, could come in handy. So after king g2, I believe I have bishop takes b1. Then he would have to take on g5, knight takes, rook b1, knight e4, and I'd be 2 pawns up, which would be good. That was my deep calculation. Let's see, you could also go f3, but that looks unhealthy. I have rook, bishop takes b1, and if rook takes b1, knight h3 check, so that's no good. Oh, by the way, after g3 I could also just go bishop b1. Yeah, now he's in trouble because he can't recapture due to knight h3. Winning the queen. Tricks. Really, I only pretend to be this positional chess culture player, but I do play for tricks. Which is not such a bad thing, but I'm more of a move-by-move player than a long-term planner. But I hide behind solid openings. Who's next? Apologies, by the way, I don't have time to keep an eye on the chat because I'm so busy looking at myself and at the position. We got Nick 2504. Some strong opponents today once again. Another Frenchman. Here we go. Mr. Nick 2393. Oh, I'm close to 2800. The magic 2800 on Chess24. This is exciting. I hope I don't panic in the face of this high rating. Which unfortunately is not a reflection of my real blitz skills. Ratings, I think they are reasonably accurate on Chess24, but they tend to get inflated a bit in online play, and in blitz play they get higher more easily. Is that true? Yeah, I think that's true. Nick doesn't seem to be here, so I'm gonna have to abort this game. I'll start my countdown till 5, which always works. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and abort. Let's find someone else. You can't win them all, indeed. Here we go. We got Mr. Bandenkicker, who I believe has not played a game on this site yet, so he's unrated. He starts with 1800, but it looks like he hasn't played anything yet. So he could be world champion of chess, or he could be a ranked beginner. We'll hopefully find out during this game. Bandenkicker from Germany. I am German, but I have a bit of a hard time figuring out what Bandenkicker means. Bande is like a gang. Kicker, it's either table football or I don't know. What's a Bandenkicker? Enlighten me. So we're playing the Nimzo Indian. I'll go for 4 knight f3. I did make a video series about queen c2, which is my main move here. But you gotta keep guys guessing, and I've played quite a bit of knight f3 as well. Castle is not supposed to be the main line because of bishop g5 and this pin. It's more annoying than it usually is once the king is castled, because you don't want to go g5 with your king on g8. All this theory, c5, rook c1, there were some games, but it's supposed to be quite nice for white. And after 4 knight f3, I'm always more concerned about c5 or b6. He goes g5 anyway, bishop g3, which, yeah, not the end of the world, but it's more committal. What was that? There was kind of a blackout while I was explaining my brilliance. I was intending queen c2, bishop b7, e3. Started with e3, after which he can take on c3 and win quite some material. That wasn't the plan, but thankfully Bandenkicker takes me at my word and goes f5. I'm not sure, I might have had some compensation there, but it certainly was not the idea. Now I get a second chance, queen c2. Knight d2 might have been a more ambitious move, but I was already panicking after blundering c3 once, so it's high time to get some pieces out. Yeah, queen a5 is possible, but it's not that scary. I think I'll just castle, and if he wants to take the pawn on c3, it would come at quite a high price. So c5, I'm not sure. Maybe b6 was the way to go. Let's see if I don't blunder again here. c, d, e, d. Yeah, no, it seems fine. Was worried about f4, but after knight c3 I have bc attacking the bishop. He goes d5. He's trying to threaten f4, it looks like. Am I concerned about that? Yeah, I'll take the easy way out once again and give up this bishop so I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to castle next move. And I'm going to pretend I'm better because he weakened his position a bit with this f5, g5, d5 stuff. It's not that clear though. The knight on e4 is nice, black has the two bishops, so it's not a clear position at all. Rook takes, castles. Might be threatening some cd, ed, knight d5. It's always a useful trick. Then if queen d5, bishop c4. My knight has a nice square on e5, so I think I'm doing alright. But all to play for, of course. Expect him to go for a move like king h8 just to stop any of my shenanigans, so maybe king g7 to keep an eye on the g6 square, king h8. I can go knight e5 and knight g6. Well, threatening knight g6. And we shall see. What else could he do? dc4. He goes b6, but that allows my devious plan. One of my favorite tricks, always keep an eye out for this diagonal, especially after f5. Queen d5 doesn't work because of bishop c4. And if this bishop has to retreat, I want a pawn and I can think if I'm greedy enough to take another one on e4. I don't want to spoil it, but I probably am greedy enough. Bishop e6 certainly plays into my greed because I can pick up a bishop, which is even better. Yeah, so now I'm a piece and a pawn up, which should be enough. I hope I'm not ruining Bandenkicker's first game. And yeah, he resigned after knight takes b4. There was not much hope. Yeah, always keep an eye out for that knight takes d5 trick. Thanks Bandenkicker for the game. What is a Bandenkicker? I still didn't understand. Or is it a table football and the sides are called Bande? I don't know. Let's keep playing. Who we got? We got Rotaug 007. Is that another German guy? Oh no, it's It's from the US, so maybe it's not Rotaug, but Rod Augustine? No, Rotaug 007, 1908, premium member of Chess 24. Let's see if he's there. I'm winning all these games and I'm still not getting any closer to 2800. It's rigged, obviously. Not much happening. Rotaug 007, are you around? Oh, there he is. He goes 1 c4. I go 1 g6. c4 is often an anti-Grunfeld move. And Grunfeld guys, I like to go for this g6 stuff. And now we get this symmetrical English, where I have some experience. e4 is playable. Black has a good setup against it though, with d6 and all the pieces already directed towards d4. So it's not the most scary, but it is a serious setup for white. He accepts his weakness, but he gets fluid development. And another problem with it, I never really looked at it, f4, and I'm always scared of getting mated with f5. One rule of thumb I kind of know is after g4 you go f5, and then you recapture with whatever pawn your opponent doesn't take with. So you mate ef with gf and gf with ef. That's what I learned as a kid. I'm not sure how much truth there is to it. But it's always good to not have some rules of thumb if you're in unknown territory. I'm going to break them though and play f5 immediately. Couldn't find a better move. Bishop e3. This is always the signal for black to go knight d4 before white gets in d4. So we'll do that. Bishop f2 prepares to take on d4, but I'm in time to bring some reinforcements with knight c6. I'm doing alright. This is always a tricky strategic decision, which I frequently get wrong. If I should go bishop takes d4 here or knight takes d4, I'm really not sure. I never understand it. I'll go knight takes d4. It's a very tricky decision if this bishop is more valuable or this one. g4, isn't that losing material? I like material. I'll take, I have my eyes set on the f4 pawn. Yeah, give me that. Not only does it win a pawn, but also ends white's attack, because this f pawn is kind of the spearhead of it, planning to make it to f5. So this was a very nice pawn to eat. Queen takes. I have some tempting moves here. e5 is tempting. Bishop e5 to be even more boring is also tempting. I think I'll go e5. The problem is it gives him this d5 square for the knight, but on the plus side it attacks the g4 pawn and allows me to bring my pieces out. And he gave me the pawn immediately with g5 when, yeah, I think white's position is quite hopeless. I just have to go bishop e6, rook f8 to have all my pieces playing, and yeah, it's pretty much game over. ed, so my bishop can go to e5 and take part in the hopefully upcoming attack on the dark squares. Knight d5, but that's just one guy. I can always take it and my bishop would be stronger than his bishop, but there's no real reason to take just yet. So instead I'll bring some more reinforcements. Bishop e5, rook f1, is there a forced win? Let's think for a second. Maybe not. Could go bishop g4 as well, queen c2. It's also no forced win. I like forced wins. Very sad. What are you gonna do? I'll just keep playing bishop e5, rook f1. I can take and king g7. And I'm kind of winning, but I felt like there should already be more. It's one of my long-term weaknesses. I normally am not very good at delivering the knockout punch in winning positions. This one is winning enough, it shouldn't matter so much, but it felt like there had to be an easier way to finish this one off. Knight c7. Could have gone to f7 as well. I'm not sure which one was better. But in general, white doesn't have the resources to create a lot of play here. So I'll just slowly but surely push my material advantage, my pawns here, up the board and win. Once again, I'm looking for the smartest way to do this. I could go queen takes c1, queen c1, sorry. Bishop f1, I still don't see a win, but there has to be something. He's hanging in there. Yeah. Sorry for the silence, I'm just annoyed at my own lack of technique, but now it looks like I made some progress. Well, I could always go into the ending with the 2 extra pawns, which was winning. But now I might not need to do that, because this... I might do. I might do need to do that. Why can't I win in winning position, ladies and gentlemen? It's so sad. I can't think. The good news is it still is winning, but yeah. Had to be a faster way. I'll check the chat in a minute. I'm sure people are telling me mate in 2, mate in 3 that won the queen. However, it's not about winning quickly, it is about winning, and I will win this game. Somehow. Sooner or later. Probably later. And one of my many pawns will find his way to the back rank, and there it converts into a queen. Looks like the g2 pawn made it. Yeah, Rod Orc went astray when he allowed me to take that f4 pawn out of the opening. After that, the position was very tough to hold. Thanks, Rod Orc. Who's next? A lot of guys on the list. Let's play against Mr. Monches56, Spanish guy. Spanish guys are always good at blitz. They are natural born fast chess players. That make any sense? Probably not. But I think Spanish players are pretty good at shorter time controls. I used to live in Madrid and play a lot of rapid tournaments and blitz tournaments there. Tricky guys. If Monches56 is here, if he's not, we're gonna have to find someone else who might not be Spanish. And there he is, he goes e4. And against tricky guys, I wanna play as solidly as possible. I'm not offending Spanish players by putting them all in the tricky box. I hope. That's not my intention. He goes 5d3. I'm always more concerned about d3 one move later, because here I got this b5, bishop c5. Well, normally if he castles, I would go bishop e7. That active square would no longer be available. However, all of this stuff is also a well-known theoretical line. Well known to some. I'm kind of out of book after c3, even though I believe I've had this position. I'll play cautiously with h6. Castles is possible, but I'm always scared of bishop g5 in these structures once my bishop is out on c5. So if I get the chance, why not prevent it? This is another cautious half-waiting move just to get out of future d4s with tempo. And now black has to make up his mind. Rook e8 would be a very typical move, then later preparing d5. And another maneuver I have a soft spot for, I'm not sure it's good here frankly, is to go knight e7 and put this knight on g6. Because the knight on c6 is always a bit misplaced. Still, I'm not sure this was in the spirit of the position. So far, very standard, slowish Spanish maneuvering. Black is fine, white is fine. Arguably, white is a little bit better, but nothing too bad. I'll play another strange move. I'm playing strangely. c5, blocking in this bishop, gaining some more influence in the center. I'm not sure if this is a model game for these kind of structures. I'm afraid it's not. d4, interesting, trying to open things up. Takes. What do we do now? A bit worried about leaving this f5 square out of sight, else bishop b7 or e takes d followed by bishop b7 would be kind of natural things to do. That looks scary. I'll do it anyway. ed, and if knight d4, not sure if I can talk myself into bishop b7 or if I want to go d5. That's kind of a typical idea in these positions. Just trying to vacate the middle of the board. Vacate, liquidate. Typical structure, but white has already made a bit more progress than he normally has in these positions. And once the knight gets to f5, I have to worry about all kinds of things with bishop h6, queen d2. So I'm a little scared. But I'll play d5 and see what happens. He can't take because of rook e1 and bishop d4. And yeah, there's knight c6, but then queen d6. Looks alright for me as well. Note that after knight c6, queen d6, there's always some queen takes g3s in the air because of this pin. That's always a trick to keep an eye out for. And as I've mentioned earlier, I do like playing for tricks. e5 is interesting here. It would be kind of a typical pawn sacrifice to keep the position a bit closed and have his pieces very active on the king side. He goes knight f5, which also makes a lot of sense. I was intending to just capture here. Does that run into any trouble I'm not aware of? Bishop h6 is not in time. Knight h6 shouldn't either. No, it looks fine. Knight d6, but that doesn't seem that dangerous somehow. Even though I haven't really thought about what to do against it. Just doesn't feel so dangerous. Rook d8, okay. Should be alright as well, but white has knight takes e4, which is a bit of an unpleasant move. Bishop f5, knight takes f6 check. So probably my dreams of an advantage have to wait. Not after bishop takes e4 though, that's a mistake. He should have taken with a knight. Now I think he's in trouble. First of all, I have the two bishops, which I'm always happy about. But more importantly, it's gonna be hard to get these pieces out. And I might already be winning here. King h2, I think I can just take and go rook c8, and his bishop on c1 is in serious trouble. So it was a good game by Montes, but then he spoiled it with bishop takes e4. After knight takes e4, white is probably slightly better. Well, now it seems to me that I'm just winning. Yep, I am. Clever move, bishop c7. I like praising myself. I could have taken an a1, but then I only win in exchange. Well, now I win a whole rook because of this intermediate check. g3, and it's pretty much game over. The rook is a rook, as they say. They also say the rest is a matter of technique, which mainly means don't blunder the c8 rook to some knight to e7 check. And I believe I will be able to manage that. Bishop d4. Also don't blunder the a1 rook to some b3, attacking the rook. It's mainly note to self, so I'm telling myself I am a rook up, so it's not that exciting anymore. But it ain't over till it's over. Game still has to be won. And I will do that. Monches is weighing his options carefully here. King g2 is what he settles on. So you guys see any good movies recently? Rook is a rook, but it never hurts to pick up some pawns as well. Yeah, it's not that many clever things I have to say about the position. I quite like my chances. It's a knight fork, and Monches resigns. Thanks for the game. Let's find another one to play. Challenges. Who do we have? Let's play against Right Tex. Where's the board? Oh, what's that doing there? Go away. Yep, here we go. Right Tex. Right Tex X from Germany. 1918. I'm a favorite. I'm creeping up to 2800. Should I reach it at any point during the show, I will make up an excuse and leave instantly. So Right Tex can prolong the show by beating me and shattering my dreams. So I'm gonna have to play longer. We once again have King's Indian with g3. I've played too many of those recently. It's kind of what my instincts are telling me to do. If I don't switch my brain on, I get to this position these days. Used to be playing e4, bishop e2, bishop e3 all the time, but I've kind of switched to those setups. He plays a bit strangely, combining knight bd7 with c5. Normally knight bd7 is an indicator black wants to go e5. Well, if you go c5, you want to do it with the knight on b8. So the knight can still go here. However, it's not bad. He goes rook b8, which makes a lot of sense. After bishop b2, he's going to play a6, planning b5. And also has the advantage, it's a line I never studied, so I am on my own. And we all know many players, and I certainly am on that list, play a lot more weakly when they are in unknown territory. For example, here I can never decide if I want to go a4 or not. a4 might be a terrible move, but it might also be a good move, stopping b5, hinting at a5 in some lines. Comes with experience, which I don't have yet in these structures, but a4 does strike me as a quite normal move, so it can't be too bad. The problem for black is there's so many pieces on the board. All pawns and all pieces are still on the board. Black does have less space, and it's not so easy to free himself. cd knight c5 comes to mind, but normally in these Maroczy type structures, white does keep an advantage, especially with that many pieces on the board that aren't so easy to either exchange or find good squares for. So Right Tex X is weighing his options. I would still go cd and then knight c5. I think b6 could also be an idea. Just play slowly, put the rook on bishop on b7. He goes rook e8, which is also fine. Sort of a waiting move. Puts the ball back in my court. d5 is always possible here. I tend to avoid d5 in most King's Indian positions. I don't like close centers so much, But since I had already mentioned it, and after giving it some thought, I quite liked it here. b5 is stopped, and it's not so easy for black to exchange pieces, so I'll just quietly prepare h3, e4, go for the e5 break. h3 because of the e4, I don't want to allow knight g4, knight e5. Not sure that was a threat, but it never hurts to control some more ground. Maybe he's going to try to play e5 or e6, which I probably would take en passant. But he goes knight e5. This is interesting. I believe knight takes e5 is better for white. I'm not sure if it's the best move. It's also tempting to follow my initial strategy and just keep pieces on the board. And I'm going to do that knight d2, and I want to go f4, push this knight back, then e4. But knight takes e5 and then a5 was also quite promising. So I'm not sure if that was the best choice. Overall, yeah, these positions are tough to play with black. You just have less space, and space does matter. Goes e6, fair enough. And I'll go f4 as announced. The knight has to retreat. Now what do we do? Could go e4, but now I'm thinking about ed, and if cd then b5, which I don't want to allow. I think I can go e4, ed, maintaining control and keeping my space advantage. Not that clear though. He could go ed, let's say knight h5 is probably a good move. Opening this diagonal. Yeah, right X is fighting back. Goes b6. I think I'll go g4 just to stop all these knight h5 shenanigans, which I don't like. It's another advantage of having more space. You can get away with slightly weakening moves like g4, because his knights don't have any squares now to punish me for it. If I finish development, I believe I will have a pleasant edge, and I can decide where to continue playing. Goes h6. Is that a preparation for g5? I don't know. Put my queen here, daring him to play g5. Bishop b7. It's time to come up with a plan. Could go g5 myself, or h4 and then g5. I think I'll do that. Not sure that was any good. Now he has h5. No, that was probably a bad move. So far, right text is playing quite well, I have to admit. Knight h7. Yeah, probably have to take one pair of rooks off the board at least. Not happy with the way I've handled this. This pin is a bit annoying, so I'm even thinking about knight d1. It just looks so wrong to do that. But I will. This bishop is strong. I believe it makes sense for me to exchange it. Still very good game by right text. I'm really not proving my significant rating advantage at all so far. Knight g4, hinting at some queen c3 check ideas, and I might also have knight e4. Now he might be in a bit of trouble actually. Probably has to go f6 or f5. Knight f8. I will go here. And my pieces are coming closer to his king. Now queen c3 check is a pretty serious threat. Oh, queen c3 check would also have won immediately, but it did not lose strength here. gf wins. I'm thinking if knight f6 is even stronger. Could be, but if you see one win, no reason to look for another one. One win is enough. And right text resigns. Yeah, it was an interesting game. I think I was better outside of the opening with these positions. There's always tricks to contemplate and counterplay, so not easy at all. That's why I have this lifelong love-hate relationship with the King's Indian and all these structures. On the one hand, I like them for white. On the other hand, I always get annoyed when there's still counterplay and tricks. Let's play against Christopher Kiesling #1, another German. We have a lot of Germans around today. Probably because the show is a bit later than usual. We have... Oh no, he's not German. He's... apologies, the name sounded German. He's from Argentina, Christopher Kiesling. Now they're Argentinian. We have a lot of Argentinians around. I can still continue my storyline, probably because the show is a bit later, because of the time difference to Argentina. We have more Argentinians around today. And I haven't played one e4 yet. I'll play e4 in the last game. Argentinians, they like the King's Indian. Is that true? I think it is. At least I was hanging out with a bunch of Argentinian players in my Madrid days, and they were always big fans of analyzing the King's Indian. Is there Argentinian history of King's Indian players? Was Najdorf a King's Indian player? I think he was. Yeah, Najdorf was a big King's Indian guy, right? Anyway, while I was talking, I blindly stumbled into the main line. And whenever I've had this position, I've played the move b4. It's probably not true. As a kid, I played knight e1 and knight d2 as well, but b4 was always the line I was intrigued by. The bayonet attack, Kramnik had some great results with it in the late 90s, early 2000s. Beat Kasparov a couple of times, so I felt drawn to this. Probably more late 90s than early 2000s. a5 and a takes b is a typical line, crippling white's pawns, but also helping white to open the king side, the queen side a bit. And now I want to go a5. However, there are measures that can be taken against this. Not sure about the theory here. a5 is probably possible, but I'll play more slowly. Rook e1 and bishop f1. Something comes to mind though. Here, well, is this a line where they go bishop g4? Maybe I've played this strangely. I think they could play bishop g4 here. h3 takes, queen takes, and then c5. If I recall this correctly, that was a problem. However, f5 is also a very natural move. But now I'll continue with my aforementioned plan of trying to open things on the queen side with a5. Not sure how I'll react to f takes e4. Probably just knight takes e4, but I could also think about knight d2 to stop him pinning me with bishop g4. I hope there's no need for that. Bishop d7. I don't like that move. What's the idea? I take. Yeah, I think that was a mistake. I think he had to go f takes e4. Unless I'm missing something cunning here, but it doesn't look like it, because now I can't cash in, and this d6 is sort of the backbone of the black position. If the d6 pawn falls, then other things might follow, because now e5 is on prise, e7 is on prise, and there's not a lot of kingside attack going. Bishop f6, I'll just keep eating. Yeah, this looks good for white now. Bishop d7, I believe, is the move to blame. There f takes e, intending bishop g4, or even instead of f5, bishop g4, look quite interesting. And I haven't looked at the theory of this line for a while, I have to admit. The main battles I see normally aren't with a5, but around this knight h5, which is hellishly complicated. But it looks like on top level nowadays they're all playing h3 stuff, and these bayonet discussions have died down a little bit, or at least I haven't seen many for a couple months at least. So here I should be winning, but as we've established earlier in this show, winning positions is not my forte, or at least winning them convincingly. So let's see what Christopher Kiesling does. But being 2 pawns up is a very, very good start. Bishop e8. I will ask this knight politely to leave, because it's too close to all my people on f4, and on h5 it's a bit further away. Now let's push our pawns. Past pawns must be pushed. Now the stereotype to which I subscribe. Let's keep pushing them. Knight takes e5. My cunning idea is to queen. He has knight f3 check, which is cute, but if I ignore it with king h1, I believe my material advantage should tell. Queen b7. That's not gonna help. I have 2 queens, so I can exchange one of them for the sole black queen. And now this worse version for black, where he doesn't even get to eat my e1 rook. So here, I haven't counted. I think I'm kind of a whole queen up for 1 minor piece. So it's not that exciting, and Christopher Kiesling resigns. Let's find a new opponent. Now, it's not that much going on in chess. The super tournaments are over for a while, but there are some upcoming. Let's play a horribly strong opponent to mentally prepare myself for the super tournaments. I'll be going to Norway to do commentary on the Norway chess tournament. I'm very excited about that one. I believe it features the top 7 in the world in the live rating list, something like that. Pretty much everybody up there except Kramnik, I believe. So that's in the second part of June. I'm excited about that. Before that, I'll play some chess. I'm going to Sardinia, play an open tournament. I've heard it's a very nice location. And now I have to survive the onslaught by Abrito99, another strong Spanish player who plays the, what's called, Italian Giuco piano. Many possible setups here for black recently. Castles and d5 has been en vogue. I've remained quite faithful to this, playing d6, a6, bishop a7 in any order. Rook e1 I thought was considered... Oh no, that wasn't the position where it was considered inaccurate. Yeah, I'm messing up already. After knight d2, then castles rook e1. There it's considered inaccurate. Here what I did was just ridiculous, losing some time. What are you gonna do? Game continues. Knight g4, not my brightest idea ever. Ay. That's a really bad start to the game. Now I'm in trouble already. Bishop g5 is unpleasant. Yeah, mainly bishop g5. That's what I would expect him to play. When I can think about him, probably will go h6, bishop h4, g5, but I'm not gonna like it much. The good thing is I only lost, let's say, half a tempo. No, I only lost 1 tempo because d4 has its pros and cons in this position, and de or d5 don't do any serious damage yet. Can't go knight bd2, but bishop g5 is the move I'm concerned about. And yeah, knight g4 was ridiculous. He goes bishop e3 after serious contemplating. Can't I take stuff? ed, knight d4, knight e4. Nah, I'm probably not in time for that. And if knight e4 immediately, there's d5 winning a piece. So we can't do that. Instead, I will have to remain humble. Try to get my pieces out. h6. Bishop e3, good move. I just didn't see it coming. h6, I think, had to be done because of rook e8 immediately. There's knight g5. Now I think I'm just some tempo down compared to normal positions, which means I'll be quite cramped and passive, which is sad. But what to do? Literally, what to do? I don't see a good move. Yeah, that's the price you pay if you screw up with black in the opening. You move too quickly. That's a problem. But he goes knight f1. I'm not sure he had to go knight f1 because now after ed, he should take with the bishop to keep this pawn. And that gives me some breathing room, hopefully. How do I play here? Could go d5, e5, knight, e4. Could go c5. Then I'm concerned about e5. Or I could go an entirely different way. I think that's what I'm going to do. It's a strange move. Bishop c6 was a strange move. I'm not playing well. Sad. Because now after knight g3 I was intending queen d7, but that might lose my bishop after d5. So I'll play a weird move, b5, trying to create a square on b7. I have to speed up as well. I've been playing badly and slowly, which is not a good recipe in blitz games, typically. Still, all hope is not lost yet. He decides to punish me for my sins by going e5. I can't calculate like half a move. d5, I didn't see knight e5 coming. This is really getting sad. Queen d6, knight c6, and bishop h7. Wow, how could I miss that? That's really pathetic. Anyway, not my finest game, and I believe I will lose this to Abrito, who's played well. I'm just an exchange down with really nothing to show for it, and he keeps making strong moves, so I would be very surprised if this ended in anything but a painful defeat. However, keep making moves, make him earn it. I'm also extremely down on time. Yeah, it's time to resign. Queen h6 is gonna checkmate me. Good game, Abrito 99, and pathetic game, Jan. Knight g4 was terrible, and afterwards, pretty much all my moves were terrible as well. That wasn't good. Let's find another guy to play and let off some steam. Who we got on the list? Sorry, challenges. Here we are. Another very strong player, which in my current mood is probably bad news, Mr. Stauff or Stoof from France. Let's see what Stoof does. Well, I'm always black. It's time to get cranky and whiny. That last game was really, really bad. Knight g4 was so terrible. Just d4. I just confused the positions. d4 the Scotch. Mr. Stoof. All the 4 knights. Now he goes for the Scotch. And I'm very faithful to this one line. I'm pretty much always playing, which might be a problem too, but I quite like it. What's this? You want to force a draw? Queen e4. Let's see if he really wants to force a draw in Banter Blitz. He does. We can't do that, so I have to play the shady move, knight to b4. Queen e4 is just a way to repeat moves for white after knight f6, queen e2, knight d5. So we can't have that, and we have to punish him for his drawish intentions, which I'm no stranger to. But knight b4, I believe, is a playable move. The problem is I can't remember what to do after any move here, knight c3 or a3. But we'll try to figure it out. I leave a3, I want to go d5. What I'm concerned about is... No, we'll see how it goes. Knight c3, I think I'm supposed to go rook d8, planning to go d5. I once looked at this knight b4 as a way to avoid the forced draw, and I concluded it's risky, but not necessarily bad. And of course, I can't take this draw the way I'm steaming right now. Bishop f4, can I go d5 here? We'll find out. ED doesn't work because of knight c2 check, or queen e4 and knight c2. And if cd, cd, it doesn't look too bad for me. It goes queen b1, which I guess makes sense. But I'll take here. Should he take, I would gain a very juicy square on d3 for my knight. And I'll go there straight away. There was a price to pay with my horrible pawn structure. You can't have everything. Actually, I think my position is okay. I'm not 100% sure, but it feels like it should be okay. If I'm in time to get in bishop g7 and get my pieces out, can't be too bad. b3, I'm not sure if I should be greedy enough to take that. I believe not. I should get the pieces out. And now, well, I can still lay eyes on the e5 pawn or the c4 pawn if he goes f4. I have queen c5 and queen takes c4. Because queen c2, can I take on e5? That's what I wanted to do. Looks like I can. If rook e1 I would take and go f6. Rook d1 is better. I'll take here. hg. Do I have to remove my pretty knight? Seems like it. We'll go to c5. I think that's a better square than e5. Because it kind of controls the white knight a little bit. Now he can go knight e4. He probably should go knight e4 with... Well, I'm a pawn up, but the position is quite close to equal because my pawns aren't that powerful. Still have some hopes. A pawn is a pawn. Let's avoid rook e8 check just in case he does a similar sensible prophylactic move, king h2. How do we make progress here? I'll try to put my rook on b2. See if that brings me any benefits. I think it might bring me some benefits actually. Rook f7, king f7 doesn't work, queen e3, and I can just take here, right? Trying to calculate, this is my calculating phase. Never works. I try to calculate and I just make a random move. Queen e5 check. I was thinking about king h6 and hoping I would not get mated. Looks like I'm not getting mated. But for example, after queen e4, which is the only move, I was planning f5 and then I would get mated. So yeah, yay Jan's calculation skills. So let's not go f5, let's do something more sensible. b1 is not a lot more sensible. I'm also running low on time. Ay. Such a pretty position. What have I done? Sure, I'm still okay, but once again, that wasn't very smooth. Oof, queen h4 mate. Yay me. This is not a good day, ladies and gentlemen. I was playing a decent game there and then I missed queen h4 mate, which you should always double check if you send your king into the attack. Man, I'm playing badly. Sad. Still, let's find another opponent and call it a day and go home, lick my wounds, or go to the movies, lick my wounds watching Mad Max. Getting crushed here. That was so unnecessary. I was totally winning, or well, not totally winning, but I had a much better position. Anyway, last game against Mr. French FTW, which probably means for the... I don't know what the W stands for. Wussies? We'll find out. French FTW goes d4. What does he want? I'm steaming, so I'll play g6, which is normally the random move you play if you just want a fight or a terrible position without theory out of the opening. e4, knight c6. Those are lines from my childhood. It's not very good. Knight f3, white is better. d5 is also possible. But mainly knight f3, that's the best move. But we'll see what happens. Sad, losing these 2 games in a row. Really unnecessary, the second one. d5 is possible, but now at least I can put my knight on d4 and pretend it was all part of the master plan. White should probably take on d4 here. Then if c4, the structure is a bit fixed. I actually prefer white there. Bishop d3. He goes knight c3, d6. And now once again we can transpose into kind of theory territory with bishop e3 or knight takes d4, which is interesting. I played that once myself. Yeah, and all this stuff I did play as a kid when I was like 13, 14. Not very good, and I'm sure I'm glad I got away from it. White is always a bit better in all these lines. But I am familiar with all these positions here. Knight a4, queen d2, knight takes d4, and then knight a4. Some options. What do you do after queen d2? No, I forgot. Just after claiming I was familiar with it. Knight f6 didn't work, it did. CD, bishop d4, knight e4. Maybe it did work. At least I have some recollection of some knight f6 trick. And since I am steaming, I'm not going to calculate anything. I'm just going to hope it works. But I believe this was a line, knight f6, if knight d4, cd, bishop d4, knight takes e4, bishop b6, knight takes d2. Black is fine. So white better play a sensible move here, like f3, for example. Stopping knight g4, and the game continues. I'd go, I don't know, knight d7, goes rook d1, but that allows knight g4. And I will go for it without thinking twice, because I'm no longer thinking. If bishop d4, cd, knight d4, I should have a lot of compensation. And if knight d4, I was intending to go knight e3. Once again, hoping to get some compensation. That's not that clear. Here cd doesn't really work, so I have to take here fe, cd, ed. And these positions are slightly tricky, but it's, I believe, quite playable for black, because it's so hard for white to do anything with his d4 pawn or his own priest. We're going to develop bishop e2, castles, or b3, doesn't matter. Oh, castle as well. The question is, what can I do? Can I get some counterplay? a5 looks like a decent starting point. Trying to go a4, soften up the queen side a little bit. Can you go b4? Nah, I think I'll take it. Rook b1. No, this doesn't look like progress for white. So yeah, I believe this structure, it arises in some King's Indian positions where black gives a pawn and white has this very nice pawn center, but it's hard to move and d4 is always a target. So I believe black is okay, actually, but that does not instill me with a lot of confidence given my prior play. Now if queen takes b3, he wants to go rook b1, so I'll be cunning and start with rook a3, tending to play rook takes b3. And rook b1 doesn't work because of, once again, d4 would be hanging. So not sure what white wants to do. He can play knight b5, but I take it, or I take on b3 immediately. I think I'm doing fine. It's always a question if white can ever go something like e5 takes c5, but doesn't really look like here. Weekend. This is the last game before the weekend starts. Again, chess players don't really know weekends. I should have a look around if there's some rapid tournaments. I'm bloodthirsty now after this humiliating Banter Blitz session. I want to play some rapid or blitz tournament over the weekend. Let me know if there's anything in the rough Hamburg, Germany area. I'll stop by. Does go e5. I could just ignore it and take on b3, but I don't really see a reason to not take it. And if I don't see a reason to not take material, I like to err on the side of eating. Still have my two bishops and b3 is still weak, so I believe this has gone well. Keeps throwing more pawns at me. As I said, I like to err on the side of eating. Queen d6, queen b2, is that a problem? Not a big problem because of queen b4. Maybe I can do better than that. Let's play the greediest way possible, just go ed6. It's probably also the worst way possible because now he gets some real compensation after knight d5. But yeah. Knight f6, I'm going to have to take. I'll try to make use of the fact that he hopefully runs into some trouble after queen d6, rook e2, queen d7. And then either there's a smart move exploiting his backrank problems, and if there's not, there's always queen takes c4, and at the very least I'm a sound pawn up. ed6 wasn't best, there must have been a better way here, but I'm still better. Queen d3, I believe I'll just go for the ending. Put the bishop here, so I keep this pawn and safeguard my king side. And take it from here. Bishop e4. Many options. Let's keep this pawn. Once again, my technique is far from convincing. I was playing bishop d5, but then after cd5 I managed to get into a situation where I can't cover everything. So I have to settle for this, which is still very good for me, but not the best way to exploit the situation. I have to go passive here for a bit. However, I am 2 pawns up, which should count for something. That's why I grabbed all this stuff earlier on, so later when my horrible technique kicks in, I do at least have a head start. And French FTW resigns. Yeah. They say all rook endings are drawn, but 2 pawns are 2 pawns, and here c4 was also falling, so his situation was not very good, even though I would have tried rook a7 because I'm capable of blundering there with rook c4, rook c7, rook d4 check first wins. So that concludes it for today. I'm off to the movies. I'm very, very sad and mad at the world for losing these 2 games. But, you know, Friday afternoon, this talking is very tough, blah, 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 blah. Thanks a lot for watching. Sorry I didn't manage to check the chat. I'll see you guys back for the next Banter Blitz session, opening clinic session at some point next week. We'll do something. We'll also do a show with Lawrence. Lawrence is in town. We should do something fun. Yeah, that was it for today. Enjoy your weekend. Go watch Mad Max so we can discuss it in the next show. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.